Welcome to the Year 9 Textile project, A Cultural Costume. I'm using the fabric from a pair of pants, so first I have to cut it and make it flat. Then I cut out the pattern for the pants. Fold the pattern where it says fold. Make sure you fold the fabric as well and line up those edges. Then use some pins to attach it so that it doesn't move while you're cutting out the fabric. So that the pin doesn't move, you have to put it through once and then put it through again, and that'll hold it in place. And then cut around that pattern. And do the same thing for the other leg. Use the pattern as a guide. First you're going to sew A to A. Remember that we sew our clothes on inside out. Again, you can use pins to hold it in place so it doesn't move. I'll first measure out some thread to use for sewing, and I'm going to make it at least 4 or 5 times the length of the seam that I'm making. We need an extra to tie a knot. Then grab the needle threader and your needle, and you're going to stick the wire bit of the needle threader through the eye of the needle. Then take your thread and put it also through the wire part of the needle threader. So that now when I take the needle threader out through the eye of the needle, it's also going to bring the thread through. Now I should have my thread going through the eye of the needle. Line up the two ends of the thread and tie a knot at the end by making a loop and putting both ends through. And pull it tight. One knot will be too small and will pull through the fabric, so we need to tie again. Make a loop, make sure the first knot is at the top of the loop, put the two ends through and pull it tight to make a bigger knot. Then we're ready to start sewing, so put your needle through the fabric and pull it all the way through. For sewing clothes, we're going to use a back stitch. So I went out on the bottom side of the fabric, so now I have to come back up through, but I'm going to come up a little bit away from where I started, and then I'm going to go back to where I started and go through again to the bottom and pull it all the way through. Then when I come up, again, I'm going to leave a space, come up through, pull all the thread through, and then go back to where I ended my last stitch. You will never go around the edge of your fabric. If you come out through the bottom, then you come back in through the bottom. If you go out from the top, you go back in through the top. Continue this process until you get to the end of your seam. When you finish a seam, you need to tie a knot. So you're going to go underneath your last stitch with the needle, and that'll create a loop. Then you put your needle through that loop and pull it tight to make a knot. Again, you need to do this twice so that it doesn't come undone. So go underneath your last stitch, put the needle through the loop, and pull it tight. You have to at least do this twice, but you can do it more to make a secure knot, and then cut off the extra. Then I realized I forgot to add a patch. I should have done this before I attached the two pieces together, but then I'm going to sew this patch to the leg and tie it off. After that, I looked at my pattern and attached the B seam to the B seam so that both sides are attached. Next, I'm going to sew the C seam. This is going to make the leg of the pants, so I have to fold it first, and then I use a pin to hold it in place, and I sew all the way up the inseam of the leg on both sides. Then I flip it inside out to reveal the finished pants. Lastly, I cut some slits to put a belt through to hold the pants to our figure. My figure has one short sleeve and one long sleeve, so I need to adjust my pattern before cutting this out. Again, I fold it, I got to cut out the neck for the shirt, attach it to a piece of fabric, and cut it out. Then I sew both sides according to the pattern and flip it inside out so that we can't see the seam. To add a button, I'm going to go through the fabric, then put the button through the needle, and then back through the fabric, not the button. Now I'm making a vest to add to my costume, so I need to adjust my pattern again, pin it to the fabric and cut it out. To add some decorations to the vest, I'm doing embroidery with some colored thread. And I'm also going to add some fringe with this yarn at the bottom. So I sew through a couple of times back and forth and tie it off. Then I sewed the seams according to the pattern and flipped it inside out. When you're done, you need to put the clothes onto the mannequin, tie the belt to make sure the pants don't fall off. Write your name, class, and the culture that inspired your costume on a piece of paper and set the mannequin on top. Fabric smaller than your hand goes in the trash, smaller than a piece of A4 goes in this box, and bigger than A4 goes in this box. Put the beads back in the container that they came from. String longer than your hand should go in this bag. String shorter than your hand should go in the trash. Wrap the extra bit of string around the spool and put it back in the box neatly. Put the needle threaders in this bowl. 3 needles on each magnet. Pins in the pin cushion. As a side note, the needle should either be in your hand or on the magnet at all times. Wrap the thread tightly around the spool and then set it back in this basket. And here is my finished cultural costume.